Yemen. A U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone was shot down earlier today. A senior U.S. defense official said in a statement to us moments ago.
The Houthis, they have shot down a third MQ-9 Reaper drone since March the 3rd, the second since a March 15th airstrike campaign began. Another U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone was shot down by the Houthis in Yemen.
A $32 million drone was shot from the sky, and U.S. President Donald Trump isn't happy. Who took out the drone? What did America do about it? And what does it mean that a rebel group is even capable of shooting down American intelligence assets? The Reaper that was shot down on April 1st was flying a routine surveillance mission over the Marib Governorate in central Yemen, which was getting pounded by U.S. airstrikes since March 15th of this year, which marked the latest military escalation of President Donald Trump's second term. On March 19th, he had this to say to the rebels: the Houthis will be completely annihilated unless they stop their attack. Iran must cease its support for these militants immediately. Not 2 weeks later, the Houthis fired back, not with words, but with missiles. The MQ-9 Reaper was flying its usual route, a low orbit over the west coast of Yemen. It wasn't armed, it was just scoping out the shoreline, mapping launch sites, and tracking mobile missile units tucked away in wadis and dugouts under camouflage nets. It flew alone at medium altitude, beyond the reach of rifles and shoulder-launched missiles, but well inside the kill zone of radar-guided interceptors. Thousands of feet below, the Houthi radar net flickered to life. Obviously, operational details of Houthi air defense are impossible to source, but whether truck-mounted or fixed, Iranian-supplied or locally improvised, the system painted the Reaper with its invisible brush of electromagnetism and fed coordinates to a launcher. Based on the altitude of the target and known Houthi weapons inventories, it was most likely a Sayad-2D, a radar-guided surface-to-air missile based on the American RIM-66 SM-1. It could also have been a 358 missile produced in Iran, which is a modern loitering munition that flies in combat at a low speed before identifying and attacking an airborne target. These missiles have been very successful in anti-drone operations in the recent past. Another possibility would be some locally made weapon or improvised artillery rocket, maybe from the Fajar family, repurposed for an anti-drone role. No matter the weapon though, it wasn't a fluke. The battle-hardened Houthi militia knew exactly how to act, and did so with precision. This was a well-coordinated interception by experienced air defense personnel. The missile lifted off with a flash, invisible to the Reaper's sensors until it was too late. The UAV was never designed to dodge a radar lock, so there were no maneuvers or defensive countermeasures. It flew straight as the missile bore down, and moments later, $32 million of American technology turned into a war trophy for the Yemeni militia. The explosion shredded the airframe and long, slender fuselage, which crumpled to the desert floor in pieces. Hours later, the Houthis released the footage. A patch of wreckage smoldering in the desert night with men talking in the background. Later, some more footage would surface of Yemeni men carrying away pieces of the broken drone, some still with United States emblems. At a press conference, Houthi military spokesman Brigadier General Yahya Saree reported that the MQ-9 had been shot down with a suitable locally manufactured missile. And then the videos of the wrecked drone and press statements circulated. On Telegram, Iranian state channels, and then later on Western news outlets, the Houthis appeared with careful language but a clear message that they would continue attacks on Israeli-aligned shipping in the Red Sea, and that they would consider overhead aircraft as targets. The Reaper had been watching them, and now it was gone. The symbolism was obvious and intentional. The Americans didn't take the shoot-down lying down. In an April 1st statement, US President Donald Trump had this to say: "Many of their fighters and leaders are no longer with us. We hit them every day and night, harder and harder. Their capabilities that threaten shipping in the region are rapidly being destroyed. Our attacks will continue until they're no longer a threat to freedom of navigation." Following the shoot-down, at the direction of President Trump, the Pentagon expanded its regional commitment, announcing the extended deployment of the USS Harry S. Truman Carrier Strike Group, and the imminent arrival of the USS Carl Vinson in the Central Command Area of Responsibility. These carrier groups will be augmented by F-35 stealth fighters fighters, B-2 Spirit bombers, Predator drones, and additional Patriot missile batteries, all with the stated goal of reinforcing air superiority and protecting freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. By April 2nd, at least 6 B-2 bombers were stationed at Diego Garcia, a remote island in the Indian Ocean. They've been used in Yemen before, but this buildup is unprecedented. According to Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell, the show of force is about deterrence, but the message from both him and Trump was unmistakable, that any threat to American personnel or commerce will be met with decisive force. This was peace through strength, delivered by jet wash and steel, and the Houthis didn't take long to test American resolve. On April 3, 2025, just 2 days after the initial attack, Houthi forces claimed to have shot down another US MQ-9 Reaper drone over the Al Hudaydah Governorate in western Yemen. You remember Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saree? Well, this time he announced that all their air defenses targeted the drone as it conducted hostile missions in Yemeni airspace. He pointed out in his statement that this marked the second such incident within 72 hours. He also claimed 36 American airstrikes with casualties inside Yemen in the preceding hours. This is the 17th drone shot down since October 2023, according to Houthi claims. Characteristically secretive, the US military didn't provide further details on the second lost drone immediately following the incident, but by the 4th of April had confirmed that that was the third Reaper shot down in a month. The MQ-9 Reaper is supposed to own the sky. With a wingspan of 66 feet and ability to fly for up to 30 hours straight, it can loiter at 50,000 feet, far out of range for most shoulder-fired weapons, collecting thermal, video, radar, and signals intelligence across entire provinces. It was built as a successor to the Predator drone, but unlike the Predator, the Reaper wasn't modified for combat. It was built from the ground up to kill. It can carry up to 3,000 pounds of ordnance, including Hellfire missiles and precision-guided bombs like the Pavoy GBU-12 and, since 2019, JDAMs. It flies faster, higher, and heavier than the Predator by far, and has become the go-to option for the US drone fleet in every modern warzone. Now, this particular weapon isn't going to come up today, but it's too wild to leave out. The AGM-114R9X, a missile that doesn't explode. Instead, it deploys 6 1-meter-long katana-like blades on impact. No fireball, no collateral damage, just surgical devastation, and then silence. A flying guillotine. These capabilities aren't cheap. Each drone costs around $32 million. But what you're getting is worth it. An unmanned sentinel keeping both hard and soft watch over global hotspots. Reapers have operated over a who's who of modern conflict. Afghanistan, Syria, Somalia, Iraq, Libya, Pakistan, the borders of Iran, Yemen itself, and now the Red Sea. They don't need runways or a lot of infrastructure and are controlled from Nevada by operators connected to anywhere in the world by satellite, keeping silent watch over the frontiers. But then something locked on, and in moments the Reaper was gone. $32 million of utility blasted away and replaced by a twisted sculpture of aluminum and circuit board on the desert floor. And who could have carved this fearful statue? Ansar Allah, supporters of God, the Iran-backed rebel group that has fought for control of Yemen and the Red Sea since 2004. Now, the US responded to this the same way we always do, taking out the man behind these takedowns and ship attacks. On April 4th, President Trump shared the details on his Truth Social with this post. These Houthis gathered for instructions on an attack. Oops, there'll be no attack by these Houthis. They will never sink our ships again. With the statement, he attached this clip. This was a big hit. We took out Houthis' top general, but before we get to that, we need to cover Houthis' response. Now, Houthis were quick to start a misinformation campaign as soon as they saw the clip. Houthis' account on Twitter posted this response to President Trump's statement. Does the United States take pride in such an act? It was a tribal gathering that had nothing to do with your ships. You failed to achieve any military target, so you bombed civilians instead. With the tweet, Houthis account attached 2 pictures of Yemeni tribal gathering, but these pictures are not from the gathering that was in the strike. These are completely unrelated pictures, likely from some other day. Later, we actually got confirmation of how devastating the US strike actually was. According to pro-Houthi Yemeni sources, the primary target of the Fazaa airstrike, referenced in a post by President Trump, was a Houthi Major General, Hamza Abu Taleb, also known as Abu Hamza, the chief of logistics for the 5th Military Regional Command, or MRC, which oversees the Red Sea coastal regions of Hodeidah and Hajjah. If confirmed, his death would mark a significant blow to Houthi logistical operations and command structure in the Western Theater. The reason I point out that this news is from pro-Houthi sources is because they have an incentive to hide the fact that a Houthi general was holding this meeting. So the fact that they're saying this means that it's highly likely that this is true. The Houthis have a long history, but losing a major general is going to be devastating. The Houthi movement, Ansar Allah, began in the mountains of northern Yemen under the leadership of Hussein Badreddin al-Houthi. Founded in the early 1990s, it's a revivalist movement of the Zaidi Shia Muslims, founded to fight against Saudi-backed Wahhabis and the Yemeni government of longtime President Ali Abdullah Saleh. They have regional reach too, and their flag says in Arabic, "God is great, death to America, death to Israel, curse upon the Jews, victory to Islam." What had started in the 1990s as cultural and religious self-defense slowly morphed into rebellion, and by 2004, following the killing of Hussein al-Houthi, it was an all-out war. Between 2004 and 2010, Yemen fought through a series of 6 intense insurgencies. These ended in a ceasefire, but by 2011, the Arab Spring had taken hold of the region, and President Saleh was forced out of office. Houthi rebels captured the capital city of Sana'a, setting off the Yemeni civil war in 2014. For the past decade, the Houthis have been fighting a brutal conflict with serious geopolitical stakes. They've taken on the Yemeni government, neighboring Saudi Arabia, and a cast of international and external enemies backed by American money and air power. The group has grown and evolved with the help from Iran, and turned themselves into one of the most effective proxy forces on Earth. They build drones from scrap and smuggle Iranian cruise missiles through blockades. Their arsenal is low budget, but high impact, as the April shootdown illustrates. In one famous 2019 case, they used a swarm of drones and missiles to attack Aramco oil infrastructure. The attack crippled half of Saudi Arabia's oil output in a single night, and led to a vicious surge in oil prices. The reach of the Houthi rebels is growing, and lately they've added to their list of targets. Since October 2023, the Houthis have declared war on shipping in the Red Sea. They say it's in solidarity with Gaza as a member of the Iran-led Axis of Resistance, but whatever the reason, their attacks have disrupted global trade, driving up costs and forcing Western navies into action. On December 8, 2023, the United States and United Kingdom, along with several other allies, launched Operation Prosperity Garden in an attempt to protect the Red Sea from the Houthis. They deployed naval ships and began providing anti-air cover against drones and missiles coming out of Yemen targeting shipping. The action started almost immediately, and missile and drone shootouts are still an almost daily occurrence. Soon after the operation started, on January 11th, US and UK aircraft like the FA-18 Hornets and Eurofighter Typhoon lifted off and pounded the rebels' defenses, destroying missile and drone launch sites as well as radar systems and communication hubs. At least 60 sites were hit during the opening attack. While not officially part of the more defensive Operation Prosperity Garden, the airstrikes have continued until the present, with a series of airstrikes beginning in March of this year. The Houthis haven't kept their motivations secret. From the first missile they launched into the Red Sea, they framed their actions as retaliation for Israel's war in Gaza that started on April 8, 2023. As members of the so-called Axis of Resistance, the Houthis have positioned themselves as an extension of Iran's regional strategy fighting Israel, the United States, and the Gulf monarchies through asymmetric means. Just like their flag says, death to America, death to Israel, etc. By hitting commercial shipping, they force global powers to reckon not only with the war in Gaza, but Iranian regional power projection, whether they want to or not. Iran has spent decades building proxy forces capable of fighting wars Tehran doesn't have to directly join. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Shiite militias in Iraq, Hamas in Palestine, former Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad, the Houthis in Yemen, they all work with Iranian coordination to exhaust Western resolve, complicate regional alliances, and deny enemy control of the region. The drone shootdowns are part of that effort, along with the increased pressure on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. Disrupting Israeli shipping is the stated goal, and the Houthis have managed to stage over 100 attacks since October 2023. They've sunk 2 ships and managed to capture just 1, but capturing cargo isn't the real goal. This tactic of targeting crucial supply lines mirrors the tactics of the greatest desert strategist of all time, T.E. Lawrence, during the Arab Revolt in World War I. Lawrence orchestrated attacks on the Ottoman Empire's Hejaz Railway, and while his attacks cost some Turkish cargo, the real victory was that the Turks had to constantly garrison and patrol their Arabian holdings. This stretched an already weak Ottoman Turkish Empire, struggling under Enver Pasha and the Young Turks. Forced to print money to cover economic collapse, troop movements and supply chains broke down without resources. Similarly, the Houthis' focus on maritime routes seeks to exert economic and strategic pressure on their adversaries, by demanding that vital shipping lanes be constantly patrolled and occasionally fought over. And there are more recent precedents than the Arab Revolt of World War I. The United States has withdrawn from several wars after being drained by long and costly campaigns. A quick reference to Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. would fit perfectly here. The outsized effectiveness of such asymmetric tactics underscores the significant impact that a motivated, well-armed militia can have on global trade and military expenditures. This threat compels major powers to use up substantial resources. For example, the United States' increased presence in the region has cost approximately $1 billion in under 3 weeks. So the operation will cost over $1 billion per month, considering expenses related to munitions, deployments, and logistical support. That's the economic cost, but these attacks are also informational warfare. Every downed Reaper is a shot across the bow to US military prestige, Israeli influence, Saudi dominance, and international maritime stability. Missiles brought the drones down, but it was Iranian doctrine that built and aimed them. And the longer the Houthis can survive, strike, and film their victories, the more they illustrate to the world that even a non-state actor, albeit armed with Iranian weapons and intelligence, can give the West a bloody nose and live to fight another day. And the Houthis know their audience.